Something is wrong with that. But go ahead, verse 16, he even says something a little more clear about it as far as the future goes. Because some preacher might read this and say, oh yeah, well he desired, see, that was the end of it right here though. You know, once Jesus did it here, you don't have to do it no more. He can't read that to you in the Bible. Tell him to read it to you out the Bible. That's all you got to do. He's just talking. But let's see what Jesus said further. 16.
For I say unto you, I will not any more eat thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God.
Wait a minute. See, Jesus knew this was his last. So that's why he come with the Last Supper. But in actuality, it was just the last Passover, right? For him, for the time being. Because he kept the Passover all of his life, brothers and sisters. When you read, everybody heard of when he was 12 years old, right? How he went in the temple and stuff. But you know what time that was? His parents had went to Jerusalem, because that was the law, to celebrate the Passover.
Right.
So he been keeping it all his life. So this was his last one, but it wasn't his last one permanent, was it? This was his last one in the flesh as a man. See, what God has ordained is good forever. That's why he turned around and said, I would not eat any more thereof. He didn't say, period. He won't eat no more of the Passover, did he? What are we talking about? The Passover, right?
Right.
That's what he desired to eat with them, right? Then he turned around and said, I would not eat any more thereof until it be fulfilled in the kingdom of God. How you going to let somebody do away with this? Jesus said the Passover is going to be eaten and fulfilled in the kingdom of God. But one thing we know for sure, it ain't get fulfilled on this day, did it? So a preacher cannot lie to us if we got any sense and we believe it and tell us that it got done away with. When Jesus, the one that they say they believe in, is saying he going to eat of it in the kingdom of God. That's what he's saying, right?
That's right.
He going to celebrate the Passover in the kingdom of God, and the kingdom of God is not here yet. Well, I mean, really, as far as God's holy days being good, we can go home right now. We can see that it's still good. At least the Passover, right? But y'all ain't going to get off that easy. Let's go to Leviticus 23. We got a lot more to see. But I mean, that case is closed as far as whether the Passover is still good in Jesus' eyes. So what Satan have all these preachers saying, we know that's a whole nother ball game. They saying something contrary to what the Lord is saying. But now we're going to go back and pick them and pick up when this day was first mentioned, along with all the other ones. Leviticus 23 and verse 4. So what would Jesus do? He would desire to eat the Passover. And he did eat the Passover. And he said, since that was his last one, he knew he was about to get crucified. He won't eat no more until it's fulfilled in the kingdom of God. That's what Jesus is about. But now let's go back to where it began at 23 and verse 4. Leviticus 23 and verse 4. Go ahead.
These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their season.
Oh, again, that's who these feasts belong to. A lot of people have ascribed them to the Jews or to Moses. But the Bible is telling us these are the feasts of the Lord. And actually the Lord is saying this. The Lord is talking. This ain't anybody talking. This is not Moses talking right here. Right. Saying that these are the feasts of the Lord. No, God is actually talking. That's why I said this is amazing. This is an amazing thing. We let Satan tell us everything that come out of God's mouth don't mean nothing. And we go hook, line, and sinker for stuff he done made up. That's why everybody going to be in church tomorrow instead of today. Because Satan gave you a line telling you it didn't change, it don't matter. Why is it that everything is so important in the Bible that God said it got to change? Somebody should think about that. So he said, these are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations. So now, again, there go that word holy, right? Holy convocation means a holy gathering, a holy get together. You are there doing what you're doing for a godly, holy purpose. That's what you're doing it for. You know, it's not just any get together. We can all have a get together on our own, but this is to dedicate to God. So when you do that, only God can ordain this, is what I'm trying to say, brother and sister. He ordained these holy gatherings. So now I don't want to hear nobody talking about they having a holy convocation, but I can't read about it in here. But you hear about big religion, you hear about the Baptists, well, we going down to Memphis or somewhere, we having a holy convocation. Right. But it ain't got nothing to do with what we reading here. What make your convocation holy? Who ordained your convocation? Right. But we will take what a man through Satan give us, but we going to reject what God said. The same people that's going to go to Memphis or wherever they go to for a holy convocation, they going to do away with this. They ain't going to acknowledge this at all. That don't make no sense. But here go to holy convocation. You want to know about a holy convocation? Here they go right here. These are the feast of the Lord, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their season. You proclaim these during the year when they come, at the set time. At the set time that he getting ready to give you. You don't make up your own. You can't do that. Right. You adding to what God said. You're going to say, well, he gave a holy convocation. I'm going to have one too. Elijah don't have no holy convocations. I might have a card party or something like that. But you know that's not something that's holy, dedicated to God. Right. I'm going to be upfront with you. So, go ahead, verse 15. Verse 5, I'm sorry.
In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover.
Now, the first one of the year, see, that's what we're getting into. Because the Lord's year started in the springtime. That's the beginning of his year. And he acknowledged in Exodus 12 that other people had beginning of years. He said, this is the beginning that I want you to recognize. So he said, in the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. Again, people say, well, this is the Jews' Passover. That's for the Jews and we got something for the Christians. Show me that in the Bible. That is something for the Jews and something for the Christians. What God gave to the Jews was people don't know who the real ones are. But what God gave to the Jews is for everybody to do. Didn't Jesus say, we read last week in John 4, salvation is of the Jews, right? And even the people that was first called Christian, they was all Jews. That's what's crazy about it. Because Jesus didn't go to nobody else, did he? So they didn't change the script. They just understood how the Messiah was a part of the script. They didn't change nothing. So don't let nobody tell you this is just for the Jews. Again, who does it belong to? Even some people say, well, that's the Mosaic law. You know, Moses gave that. Look, he said in the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. Now, here go the Passover written in Leviticus 23. You got people say, oh, see that Old Testament done away with. You an Old Testamenter. Well, the one you say you believe in, Jesus, guess what? He must have been an Old Testamenter. Well, we just read in the New Testament. In Luke 22, right?
Right.
We just read he talked about this day. Desired to keep this day, kept this day, died on this day, and you going to consign it to the Old Testament. Somebody crazy. In the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover, right?
That's right.
That's who Passover it is. Go ahead, verse 6.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord.
See, right on the heels of it. That's why they just called it all the Passover, because it all went together. It all happened at the same time. Boom, boom, boom. So that's why they just called it all the Passover. You even eat unleavened bread with the Passover. You had to eat that. But well, we getting the accurate date line right here, aren't we? The 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. Then he said on the next day, on the 15th day of the same month, that's the next day after the 14th, right?
Right.
Is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. Again, who is it unto?
The Lord.
The Lord. But see, at this time when we should be doing this, we didn't let man tell us, well, we got Lent and we got Good Friday and we got Easter. And everybody going for that hook, line, and sinker. And look like they get vomit in their mouth when you talk about the Lord's holy days. They get disgusted with you. Like Feast of Unleavened Bread. Like they get a bad taste in their mouth about it. That's a shame. I'm talking about God said this. Well, go ahead. What verse you at? 7?
Verse 7. Verse 6.
Finish verse 6. Read it again.
And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord.
Unto the Lord. Go ahead.
7 days ye must eat unleavened bread.
And it wasn't a request. He said you must eat unleavened bread. Has a great meaning. It's showing you part of God's plan to save you. See, his days mean something. They are showing you what he is doing. See, if somebody would have understood back here, they could have told you. God definitely understood that Jesus, the real lamb, is what this day, the Passover, is about. Because Jesus came all those years later, like we read, and he celebrated and died on that day, right? But Satan and tricked people said, well, that was just the Lord's Supper or the Last Supper. But we read it for ourselves, didn't we?
That's right.
Go ahead, verse 7.
In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation.
There go a holy convocation again. See, the first day of unleavened bread, it's a Sabbath day. See, he didn't have back-to-back Sabbath like that when he gave the annual ones. That's why the Passover is not a Sabbath day. Because else you would be having 3 Sabbath days in a row, and you would never have that. You would have 3 Sabbath days in a row sometime, including the weekly Sabbath, if the Passover was a Sabbath and the first day of unleavened bread was a Sabbath. But the Passover was a memorial, but it wasn't a Sabbath where you couldn't work. But the first day of unleavened bread, he said, that's a Sabbath day. That's why he said in verse 7, you have a holy convocation and do no servile work therein. Don't do no unnecessary work aside from what you're doing to feast to the Lord. But go ahead, verse 8.
But ye shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord 7 days. In the 7th day is an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein.
See, it lasts 7 days, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He said you need to eat unleavened bread for 7 days. See, that's why we even got some to pass out to people so you can obey that. We can do the best we can with it. We still can eat unleavened bread for 7 days. And that's what he's telling us. Then he said at verse 8, the last day is where it climax. That's in holy convocation. Again, these are holy gatherings. How you going to change what God is designating as holy? See, so Paul couldn't change this in Romans 14 and say, well, if you esteem a day or then another day, that's up to you. Look, that was general, like I pointed out earlier. That didn't have nothing to do with what God is saying. Look, this coming out of God's mouth. He is saying these are holy days. Have holy convocations on these days. No man is saying that. And then he mentioned the offerings. Well, we understand they had to do certain offerings. He's going to have that done again. But we know Jesus is the real offering that all that's about. So you still need your offering. You just got to accept the Passover lamb that was offered up for you, and that's Jesus. But now, let's go to back up to verse 1, because I want to just point out who was saying it. But we see that Jesus said in Luke 22 he desired to keep the Passover, right? So, and he ended up dying on that day. And he said he won't keep the Passover no more till it's observed or kept in the kingdom of God, because that was his last one. But he desired and he kept the Passover. We read in Luke 22 and 15. So, but what Passover? The same Passover that originated right here that we just read, that it said was the Lord's Passover. So, did Jesus do away with the Passover? No, he didn't. He didn't do away with it. So we shouldn't listen to no man telling us if we believe in the New Testament and Jesus, we don't need the Passover, do we? But go ahead. We're going to get into some of the other ones. Verse 1, 23 and 1. Go ahead.
And the Lord spake unto Moses,
again, saying, I told you who was talking all the time. The Lord is talking. So Moses didn't make it up, brothers and sisters. The Lord took time out of his schedule to tell Moses to give this to the people so they can be honoring him accurately. But we gonna say none of this matter. I told you only Satan would do that, brothers and sisters. I'm talking about God is talking right here. And you gonna listen to Satan tell you what God said don't matter, but you gonna do some little stuff on the side that's big and important to you. Like I had people tell me, you talk about the feast of unleavened bread. I told you it looked like vomit come in their mouth. They get a bad taste. Feast of unleavened. What y'all do for that?